to welcome you to our 5th painting series. If you've been with us before, I hope you have your almighty easel set up and you're all ready to go along with me and paint a fantastic little painting. And let's go across the colors that we're going to use. I'll have them graphically run the colors across the screen, starting with the titanium white and going all the way around. And they'll come across your screen in the same order that I have them on my palette. If you haven't been with us before, hang around. I think you'll really enjoy what we're going to do. Now, I've already covered the canvas with a thin, even coat of magic white. And the magic white, it makes the canvas wet, makes it slick. It allows us to literally blend color right on the canvas. So let's go up here and do it. And I'll start with a big old 2.5-inch brush today. And we'll go right into a little bit of phthalo blue. And we'll just work some of that right into the bristles here. Just beat it into the bristles so you have a nice, even distribution of color. Okay, let's go up to the canvas here. And maybe we'll make let's just make a happy little sky here. We just use little crisscross strokes. And just let the brush just sort of bounce around and play. And just let it have fun. Let it have fun.
Hello, this is Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station Travel Adventures once again. And me and my son Forbes are on another great adventure. And we are in Goth, Florida. And we're visiting a graveyard called Woodland Cemetery. And we're here to visit a famous grave. And if you can tell by the music, if you recognize it, you'll know who we're here to visit. That's right, we're here to visit the famous artist Bob Ross that had the TV show called Joy of Painting. And I grew up watching Bob Ross. I loved Bob Ross. I even bought the paint set, the master paint set, and learned how to paint like Bob Ross. And I think a lot of people just enjoyed watching him painting. Even my 11-year-old son Forbes here, he likes Bob Ross. He's even got the appropriate shirt on for today. And it's Bob Ross that says, "Happy Trees, Joy of Painting." And my son even brought a paintbrush to put on his grave and to honor Bob Ross, because even kids like Bob Ross. So follow us on this adventure as we visit Bob Ross's grave. So before we actually go visit Bob Ross's grave, I wanted to give you a little history of Bob Ross. Bob Ross, Robert Norman Ross, was born October 29th, 1942 and died July 4th, 1995. He was an American painter, art instructor, and television host. He was the creator and the host of The Joy of Painting, an instructional television program that aired from 1983 to 1994 on the PBS in the United States, which stood for Public Broadcast System. He was also on the CBC in Canada and similar channels in Latin America, Europe, and elsewhere. Ross would subsequently become widely known through his photomous internet presence. His early life, Bob Ross was born in Daytona Beach, Florida, to Jack and Ole Ross, a carpenter and waitress respectively, and raised in Orlando, Florida. As an adolescent, Ross cared for injured animals, including armadillos, snakes, alligators, squirrels, one of which was later featured in several episodes of the television show. He had a half-brother, Jim, who he mentioned in passing on his show. Rob dropped out of high school in the 9th grade. While working as a carpenter for his father, he lost part of his left index finger, which did not affect his ability to later hold a palette while painting. Now, see, I didn't know that, did you, Forbes?
Nope.
That he had a missing index finger. He was in the military. In 1961, 18-year-old Ross enlisted in the United States Air Force and was put into service as a medical records technician. He rose to the rank of Master Sergeant and served as the first sergeant of the clinic, Ellison Air Force Base in Alaska. where he first saw the snow and mountains that later appeared in recurring themes in his paintings. He developed his quick painting technique during brief daily work breaks, having held military positions that required him to act tough and mean. The guy who makes you scrub the latrine, the guy who makes you make your bed, the guy who screams at you for being late to work. Ross decided he would not raise his voice when he left the military. So after the military, after his 20-year Air Force career, Ross developed an interest in painting. After attending an art class at the Anchorage USO Club, he found himself frequently at odds with many of his painting instructions, who were more interested in abstract painting. Ross said, "They tell you what makes a tree, but they wouldn't tell you how to paint a tree." Ross was working as a part-time bartender when he discovered a TV show called The Magic of Oil Painting, hosted by German painter Bill Alexander. Alexander used a 16th century painting style called alla prima, Italian for first attempt, widely known as the wet on wet method, that allowed him to create a painting within 30 minutes. Ross studied and mastered the technique, began painting, and then successfully selling Alaska landscapes that he would paint on gold mining pads. Eventually, Ross's income from sales suppressed his military salary. He retired from the Air Force in 1981 as a master sergeant. He returned to Florida, studied painting with Alexander, joined his Alexander Magic Art Supplies Company, and became a traveling salesman and tutor. Annette Kowalski, who had attended one of his sessions in Clearwater, Florida, convinced Ross he should succeed on his own. Ross, his wife, and Kowalski pooled their savings to create his company, which struggled at first. Ross was known for his permed hair, which he ultimately disliked but kept after he integrated it into his company logo. The origins of the TV show The Joy of Painting are unclear. It was filmed at the studio PBS station WIPB in Muncie, Indiana. The show ran from January 11th, 1983 to May 17th, 1994, but it still remains and continues to appear in many broadcast areas and countries, including the non-commercial digital network created to streaming Hulu in the United Kingdom. The BBC reran episodes during the COVID-19 pandemic, while most viewers were in lockdown at home. During each half-hour segment, Ross would instruct viewers in a quick wet-on-wet oil painting technique, painting a scene without sketching it first, but creating the image directly from his imagination. In real time, he explained his limited paint palette, destructing the process into simple steps. So, he would tell you as he painted the colors of the paint he was using, the type of brushes, how to use his technique and paint along with him to create the beautiful paintings that he did. Like I said, even my son's only 11 years old, but he knows who Bob Ross is. Everybody liked to watch Bob Ross. So join us as we go and visit his grave and pay respects to this famous artist. Follow us. Well, I tell you, it's a beautiful cemetery too. We're going to take a look at some of these statues while we're here too. And I know where he's buried. I've seen other videos on YouTube. So he's buried close to this pond, and this statue over here of Jesus at the synagogue preaching to the high priest. But I know he's under a tree here. He shouldn't be too hard to find. Usually people leave a lot of stuff on his grave to commemorate respect out of Bob Ross. So we will find him. Just give us a minute. So if we find him, he's going to have a bunch of stuff on his grave for us. Paint brushes and stuff like that. You check up in that area and I'll check down here. He's buried close under a tree. If you find him, let me know. So I'm gonna go this way. My son's going up. My son found him. I thought that might be his because I've seen a lot of stuff on his grave. So we'll go down here and pay our respects. Yeah, a lot of people leave stuff on his grave. Everybody liked the man. He was a beautiful person, Bob Ross was. He spoke in a gentle voice. And here we are. Bob Ross. As you can see, people leave stuff on his grave. October 29th, 1942 to July 4th, 1995. Bob Ross, the television artist. He died of lymphoma. It was known that he was expected to die young. He was a heavy smoker, smoked cigarettes, and that's what he died of, cancer. As you can see, there's a squirrel, because he had a little pet squirrel on TV he'd always carry around and talk about. There's a paintbrush, a little happy little tree mint case. Here's another paintbrush. Somebody left him notes, money, a cross, squirrel. There's a little bobblehead, Bob Ross. So my son decided he wants to leave him a paintbrush he brought along from Pennsylvania. Want to do that, son? Put it wherever you want. There you go. So we hope Bob's resting well and painting happy trees in heaven. And I'm sure he is. He's probably looking down on us now. He was a very gentle soul. And it's a shame, after he passed away, his son should have inherited all the Bob Ross company and the money. But there was someone else that was involved in the business that kind of ripped Bob's son off, and he don't get any proceeds whatsoever from his dad's painting. And it's a shame, because I know Bob Ross would be really upset about that, and that person ought to be ashamed of themselves, taking over the company like that and not letting his son have any profits or any money from it. They ought to. And I'm telling you, I'm ashamed of you that you did that to Bob Ross and his son. So if you're watching this, that's just how I feel about it. But like I said, my son's wearing the appropriate shirt there. It says Bob Ross, television's favorite artist, Happy Trees. He was a great man, and we love you, Bob. We miss you, and just wanted to let you know that we enjoy and still enjoy today your paintings. And me and my son still watch your paintings, and my daughter's even getting into it. I showed her one of your shows, and she really enjoyed it. So rest well, my friend, and we'll see you someday in heaven. And just letting you know that we wanted to pay our respects to you and tell you how happy you made us, and it made a lot of people. You just don't, I don't think you got to live long enough to realize, maybe you did, I hope so, how much people cared for you and loved watching your show. So that's the famous artist. I wanted to show you a couple statues here as we walk away from Bob's grave. This is really neat. This is young Jesus at the synagogue preaching to the high priest. They really do have some pretty statues here. Beautiful cemetery. Lots of neat statues and things to see. But I wanted to share this with you and show you around the cemetery. It's a beautiful day here in Florida. It's like a low 80s, not real humid, beautiful weather. This is a really neat monument here of young Jesus preaching to the high priest. Made of marble. Got the high priest here. They're missing some fingers. That's a shame. I don't know if it's from vandalism, but people shouldn't do that. And really neat statues here. This is young Jesus. And at the synagogue in Jerusalem. Thought I'd show you that, and that's really neat. There's a statue off in the distance, looks like praying hands there. And really beautiful statues throughout the cemetery. But I'm glad you could join us on this adventure visiting Bob Ross's grave, and here in Goth in Woodland Cemetery, Goth, Florida, if you're ever down here. And like I said, he's easy to find. You look for the pond in the back of the cemetery, and then he's buried right in front of this statue, this cathedral of Jesus preaching at the synagogue. And there's a big tree right in front of it, and he's buried close to underneath the tree, just to the right over there, but underneath that tree in front of it. Right there where them pink flowers are in the front near the road is where he's buried. So hope you enjoyed our adventure today of visiting Bob Ross, and got one off our bucket list. Me and my son both wanted to do this, and thank you for joining us. And this has been Uncle Jimmy on Jimmy's Train Station Travel Adventures. If you're watching this, please subscribe to my channel, give it a thumbs up, feel free to like and comment, leave suggestions of other things you'd like to see in the future. Till then, go out and have your own adventures and enjoy life, and get out there and see things. You only live once, so enjoy it. Till next time, this has been Uncle Jimmy with Jimmy's Train Station Travel Adventures. Goodbye.
Bye.